UK's worst high street, where prostitutes are only charging £10 in a place called Condom Alley. So we're talking about the UK's a place in Swansea, where I'm from. This podcast is being made. That's been dubbed the UK's worst high street. Is it really what it says, or has it been failed by local government and government funding projects and infrastructure projects? We're going to look into this on Around the World Today, here on Real Terrier Radio Podcasts.
You by Real Terrier Radio. Around the World Today, here on Real Terrier Radio.
So this week in the media, as I said, the High Street of Swansea. So the High Street of Swansea is a long street in the city centre that comes up and starts by Argos, I believe, and goes all the way up to Davati Lights in the Swansea city centre, and it has some landmarks like Alexander House, the train station, High Street train station. There's a car park, multi-storey car park that goes down to Park Howie. We will be talking about that. The Grand Hotel. And, there's a few businesses. Got the Evening Post newspaper that's currently owned by the Mirror, and we're taking a lot of our information from them and the Wave, our local, so the Sun, who own them. The same company who owns Sun owns the Mirror, or who own our local radio station, The Wave, and both of them have done some investigations into this as they are local, but another media organisation, the Daily Mail, have also picked it up, and we are controlled by Labour Council in Swansea. We would have liked, and I'll start this at the first, we would have loved to been able to ask the leader of the council to come and join in on this podcast. However, the leader of the council about 2 weeks ago, and I am being so upfront about this, so my opinions may be a bit biased, but the leader of the council 2 weeks ago, after Swansea City Council announced that basically there was not going... that the company they were working with to redesign the city centre, the road network and the Kingsway, Orchard Street, what's the next street behind High Street, conveniently, that we're talking about, kind of went bankrupt, and there were workers. He chose to announce an anniversary for 60 years of it, Swansea being a city, without actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Without actually, he did it 2 days after that these workers were told, or the day after, sorry, that these workers were told that they were unemployed. Now, I don't expect this from someone who is meant to be representing party values such as the Labour Party, considering that the Labour Party was set up first for workers' rights. Now, yes, they didn't work for you, but the contract they were working on was your council's contract. I feel a bit guilty about that as a taxpayer here in Swansea, because technically they were working for us, the taxpayer. They were on a local council contract to redesign the road network. They were working on behalf of us, the taxpayer. But anyway, so he then decided to block me after I sent him a nice message about it, or commented. So he's took me to be a troll, and he blocked me. Now, he appeared on a radio station yesterday, and we will have a copy of that, and he says that he takes views from social media. No, he only takes views that he likes from social media and deletes and blocks any criticism. Now, I believe that the only way that you can make something better is to take the criticism, but to also take the praise as well, and put it together, because you're able to get a proper picture. You're not living in some kind of crowd cuckoo land. Now, we're going to go back to High Street, and it's quite a thing to me because I mentioned a street called Orchard Street. Now, I've been looking into my family history, and it's on one of the other episodes. I believe I talk about family history, but I'm going to talk about my own in another episode next week. In 2 weeks, time. And basically, in the next episode, you'll be talking about what I've learned in my family history, so we're going to go back in and revisit that topic. But I'll give you a spoiler. My family, or my 2 times great-grandmother, she used to live, and her name was Ruth Hayes. The married name of my relative was Burke, so she was Ruth Burke, and before that she was Ruth, and I really can't remember. Ruth Arnold. She married someone called Joseph, or Joe Papalas. I can't say it because it's in Latin, because they were Catholic. She married someone called Joseph, who was from Ireland. She was born in Bristol, but he came from Ireland. So I have Irish blood. But anyway, he died in 1900, and she remarried. Most women did when their husbands died. They remarried. They had children. They had a family to support. And I get it. I really do. And she lived on Orchard Street in Swansea for years. Right up until 1943, when she was bombed out, I believe. I don't know if she was bombed out, but up until 1943, she died there. And I don't know what happened then, because I'm still looking. And some of this stuff hasn't been released. So it's an ongoing thing. But my great-grandmother lived there. And 3 times great-grandmother she was. My great-grandmother, she lived there with my great-grandfather. Now, my great-grandmother, my 2 times great-grandmother, Granny Davis, my mum called her. My mum actually remembers her. She also lived on Orchard Street. Now, her son is my great-grandfather, so my Bamper's dad. He lived there. There's stuff on the census saying he lived there. So I have quite a close thing. I don't know when the family left Orchard Street. I don't even know where the house was. I'm in the middle of looking, because, it's quite interesting. But going back to High Street and Orchard Street, there's like an alley between where the job centre and Alexandra House is. It's currently closed because they're building student flats in Alexandra House. More about that as well in this, because Alexandra House is on the border of High Street and Orchard Street as the streets merge off, basically. It's the next street over. So, it used to be a big street in its time where houses and, big houses were and stuff. And pubs as well, and stuff like that, and the police station. I know this area. My family lived in this area. My great-grandmother, on my nana's side, so my mum's nana, she used to run a pub on High Street called The Full Moon, and she ran it for years. So, my family know High Street, know the area. Most people in Swansea know High Street and know the area. What gets me is every time that there's been a major building, I would say in the last 30 years, every time they've done something to Swansea city centre, it stops where a shop called CK's is. All of the building stops on that side of the road, directly across the road from the train station where CK's is. And on the train station side, it stops a little bit more up, but where the tax office is. So just before you get into the tax office. And if you look down at the roads, you can see this in the pavements and in the roads themselves, because that's where the work stops. That's where the council defy Swansea city centre ends. And the gateway of Swansea ends. However, what they fail to take into account is, and I will bring this back up later, once we've gone into the story, I should say, but what they fail to take into account is that, it goes on. It really, High Street is a long street, so technically, although they stop all funding at High Street train station and the tax office and CKs, technically the rest, where you cut in the funding, is the top. Now yes, the council have recently done up the flats, the tower blocks that I was talking about on the top of High Street, and I was in the mirror that, that, because on the top of High Street there are tower blocks. So yes, the council have done these tower blocks out, and they're on Diwali Street, I believe. I'm looking at Google Maps. I'm from Swansea and I don't know half of it. I know, it's quite bad, isn't it? It's not a big city, but anyways, the flats that are there, there's quite a few of them on the top. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I would say 5. The town and centre district housing office is there. There's even a school. There's supermarkets on High Street. There are many businesses. There's a place called the Palace Theatre. Now that's a little bit up from the train station. That's just been allowed to go to rack and ruin. It seems to be that, to me, looking at it, and I haven't read the stories to you yet, so please bear with me. I'm trying a different way today. So I'm trying to, get out my thoughts before I go into fact. But basically, it seems to me that this problem is theoretically of the council and government's own making. Because it really is. So you used to have the basically on High Street is where the main benefit office is for Swansea. So the DWP's Job Centre Plus on High Street. Meaning that if anyone, like vulnerable people or people on benefits or drunks, alcoholics, because most of them are actually on benefits, well, or used to be, they all used to congregate around by the Job Centre or High Street. Now, the Job Centre itself used to be down by St David's, and this is right smack bang in the middle of town, just by the bus station. And it was St David's shopping centre that never really took off. So the Job Centre was down there, and that's where all of, these kind of people that now congregate on High Street, not the prostitutes, but, the drunks, the violent people used to hang around, because if we check the records, there was a lot of crime down there. Then, in the early 2000s, it was decided, actually, 1997 about, I would say, it was decided to move the Job Centre from its location at St David's and its purpose-built tower block, and it was left empty for many, many years, up until about 4 or 5 years ago when it was boomed and demolished. But anyway, I would say 7 years ago, actually, 7, 8, it's just recently been demolished. It was left for about 20 years, practically empty, not really used, so they took an office out on High Street, where they still are today. Now, I argue that this move really was done to stop these people and the trouble happening in town and just moving it on. Do you know what I mean? Rather than addressing the situation. That's what it looks like to me. It also looks like to me that the trouble spots happen in the other part, so the top end of High Street, past that tax office, because basically it's not seen as the city centre. So this is the kind of trouble that you get in, you're not taking it into the bigger picture, because it's the same kind of trouble that you would get in a housing estate. So they're grouping the top of High Street together with the housing estate of Davati and a little bit of Harvard. And, you know, if you look at them together, you would probably see, or even, you know, compare it to other housing estates, you would probably see that the crime figures for that area, or past the train station, would be, you know, about the same as a normal street. But before the train station, if you look at the crime figures, you would probably see that that resembles the same as a street within a city centre. So, you know, the question is, where is the border? Why are we putting the crime figures for two different areas, although on the same street, but two different kind of areas, and we're putting them together for a whole street? Now, residential crime is different to retail crime. I would say, yes, a crime has been committed, but they are different. You know, a city centre have problems with pickpocketing and, you know, and stuff like this, and people just coming into the city centre like drunken behaviour and things like this, where a housing estate, flats, have problems with do you know what I mean? Violence against, like, each other, domestics, and, you know, all of that bubble. So, yeah. Okay, so we're going to go into the story now. So that was my little 14-minute rant about it, about how I've seen it. So basically, I see that they've just done cosmetic changes all along, and no one really knows where High Street starts and High Street ends. Not even the council, because yes, technically on the maps, High Street starts by Davati Lights, but according to, if you look at the infrastructure money being spent, High Street starts and ends by the train station. You know, question is, you live on one half, and it's okay, and, you know, they've left buildings just rot. Like I said, I mentioned the Palace Theatre. The Palace Theatre is a very old theatre. Many famous people sang there as well. It's a show hall, a music hall. It was used as a nightclub, I believe. It's... I don't know, it's just been left. It was sold to property developers who have just left it. Now, at this point, the council are failing in their duty because they are the custodians of like, buildings that are listed and stuff like this in their own regions. But they're not failing to they're failing to act on it. Instead, they're throwing money at new roads that didn't need to be dug up in the first place. Anyway, so a Welsh city has been dubbed Britain's worst high street due to a surge in drug use, crime and prostitution, which sees women charging just £10, that's just £10, mind, for sex. Business owners in Swansea say they are being forced to close down due to increased antisocial behaviour, which is driving customers away. Well, yes, you know, an increase, and so what do you describe as antisocial? Who makes, you know, the sign as antisocial? Now, I resemble antisocial behaviour with children. I don't resemble it with adults. I call an adult acting as a dick, or an adult acting in the performance of, or doing something antisocial. I call them crazy. You know, antisocial behaviour is normally taken as an excuse from a child. There's no excuse for an adult to conduct antisocial behaviour. Anyway, some of the locals say that they're too afraid to go out to walk the once bustling High Street at the night, which now has boarded up shop fronts and abandoned buildings. Like I said, there are quite a few buildings that are abandoned there and have been owned for years by property developers wishing it. There's a hotel just outside the High Street train station called the Grand Hotel. Now that was left empty for years. For about 10 years before it was redone out and rebought and done properly, it was left just to it. Now, some of the locals, like I said, are afraid to walk out. One woman told the Sun newspaper here in the UK she used to walk through the area at night, but I kept getting stopped by men asking how much I charged to have sex with them. They thought I was a prostitute. Can you imagine what that's like? You're only popping from your house or your flat to your local shop to get like a bottle of milk, and all the way there you're being stopped. Or you're walking, because you live like in the city centre, you've decided to take a walk down to, I don't know, the Wine Street, what's technically on the same road because it's one straight line, but you change roads, so, you know, to go for a drink. And you thought, you walk down and you meet your mates, or you decided to go out for a meal, and you stopped and asked these questions. It can be very, daunting. Now she's just too scared, so she says it's easier to just stay in her flat. Do you know what I mean? It's bad, to say the least. Okay, so there's a dark alleyway running the length of the street, and it's been dubbed as Condom Alley. And there's up to 20 sex workers operating there every night in plain sight, according to this. Customers are charged just £10, says the discreet woman who works there. Just 16 months ago, Swansea was hoping to become one of the UK City of Culture, or the UK City of Culture in 2021, but the hopes were dashed and lost out, and we lost out, Swansea did, to Coventry, and a few years ago in 2013, we also lost out to Hull in the same competition for the City of Culture 2017. I know. Proprietors around say that they are not getting the protection they need from the police following a number of violent, troubling incidents in recent months. Now, there's a pub called the White Swan in High Street. It's been there for donkey's years. It was probably there when Granny when my Nana Hopkins owned the Full Moon, or worked at the Full Moon, or run the Full Moon pub. So yeah, it's probably been there for years. So, same kind of business. I don't agree with this guy's business plan, because what he was trying to do, his business was never going to work where it is, because it's, it's on that border. It's just past that border. That border I was telling you about, where money's been spent and stuff, and, the cut-off. And you can see it on the streets. Look at the pavements. I talked about Auction Street. Go behind where, if you ever come to Swansea, go and look at the street right now called where Central Auction Street Clinic is. There's a side street, and it's got a little Baptist church and Auction Street Clinic and the old police station, what's now UWTSD. Walk behind there up onto the next street where the Glenvivian Art Gallery is. Or museum, and you'll see, look at the pavement and compare the pavement to the pavement that was there, or actually you can't because it's gone. Compare the pavements actually to what is there now, and you'll see that the paving stones there were put there donkeys years ago, and that street then connected onto Auction Street that had its major done. They never spend the money on the side streets or bits that they feel that people who don't come to Swansea won't notice or see. Cosmetic changes. So this person owns a pub. Well, yeah, he's opening a business, so that's a good thing, and he's providing jobs. That's another good thing. However, he did do it in my opinion. Now, this is my opinion. He did it in the wrong location, but maybe at the wrong time. Who's saying that in a couple of years' time he may come back? And I hope he does come back. I hope the council take what this guy is saying. His name is Jez Couch, and I hope that they really do listen, because it needs to be. this business owner said that police ask him. There is no CCTV. They have prostitutes regularly standing on the street, and there is violence. He saw a guy beating up his girlfriend. When he tried to intervene, the owner of the pub, the guy turned on him. The place is just abandoned in general. He's tried to make a real go of his pub. What any business person opening a business would do, you try and make a real go. But now he says that he's given up. And do you know something? I don't blame the man. I looked at their Facebook, and it's the Swan part. I can't remember, but I've seen, his Facebook and stuff. And basically, at one point, the person across the road, and there's stories about this, and him, an air rifle shooting it out. The street had to be closed again because of the police. This is why it's got out of control. Do you know what I mean? And this was the final store. Now, a garage owner, I didn't even know there was a garage on High Street, said, when I arrive at 7 a.m. to open up and spend the first 10 minutes cleaning away the needles and the condoms that have been dropped outside my workshop. Oh yes, there is on the top. Do you know what I mean? You don't need it. Another one he added that the council send cleaners every morning, but he doesn't always have time to wait for them to show up. Do you know, businesses are being hurt. Now, Wales Online obtained figures from South Wales Police that in January, via the Freedom of Information Act, there were 1,164 incidents on High Street alone, were reported to police in the last year. In November, a man was jailed after attacking a man in a High Street pub, and in a seemingly random, motivationless attack by smashing him in the face with a pole. It's just normal, isn't it? And in February of last year, another man was jailed after attacking 2 sex workers, the first of which he had approached in Upper High Street before walking off to a nearby park in Harvard. So, Upper High Street, you know how they're referring to it? Upper High Street. Isn't it just a street? It's not a valley, it's not like up a hill. It's one single street. When did they change the name from Lower High Street to High Street, Middle High Street to Upper High Street? Anyway, before walking, okay. Mr. Kutch's voice is just the latest that have been raised in concerns over the crime on the street. Parents of a special needs school, there's a special needs school right next to, or just off High Street in that council estate where those flats are. Parents have complained of sex workers touting for business outside Ysgol Colgwyn Glass, just off the High Street, while others have voiced concerns at them being mistaken for a sex worker. Now, yes, they've gone to the police and they've asked them, and Sergeant Andrew Hardley of South Wales Police said crime and antisocial behaviour does not have a detrimental does have a detrimental impact on our communities, and we are aware that some streets, including High Street, generate greater demand. We are committed to tackling crime throughout the division for those areas to continue to receive the focus and attention. In the High Street and the city centre generally, our neighbourhood teams carry out regular high visibility patrols in order to offer reassurance to people visiting, living or working in the area, and also that we respond in a timely manner to issues as they arise. Okay. In addition, we often deploy plainclothes officers to ensure we are at the heart of the affected parts of the community. Sex workers are known to frequent High Street area, and we understand and share the concerns of the local residents and business owners who often feel intimidated by their presence. We work in partnership with a range of third sector organisations to safeguard on signposts vulnerable and sex workers while working to target the prostitute, the proprietors who exploit their vulnerability, or the predators who exploit their vulnerability. Now, considering what's been going on, there's been more, and I will now find you what the leader of our local council has said about this whole matter. It's quite astonishing, to say the least. I'm just now looking for
Podcasts brought to you by Real Terrio Radio. Around the world today here on Real Terrio Radio.
This is the world we live in. This is the world we call our own. This is the time, and times are changing. This is the world we call our home. Feel the freedom. There's no limit to what we can do.
for it. Now, let's take a moment, shall we, when I'm waiting for something to load on my computer, and I know I should have this ready, and you can shout at me if you want. Please do. You can email me at terryd@realterrioradio.u. Oh no, it's not. It's terryd@realterrio.co.uk, and visit our website, realterrio.co.uk or realterrioradio.uk. Come in, visit, comment, please get involved. If you are listening on YouTube, hello, you can comment below. Remember to subscribe to our channel as well. And we'll now go back to our topic. And if you are listening halfway through, why don't just go back to the beginning and listen to it again. We're talking about High Street in Swansea that's been dubbed the worst street in the United Kingdom, and it's not the first time. It isn't the first time. A recent Google search shows this. That it's not the first time. If you go onto Google and you put news and you put High Street Swansea, it isn't the first time. Anyway. Why is there always more news? Sorry. I'm joking. There's always news, isn't there? Even small news. I'm now just looking at Kendra. Okay, yes. So, yes, High Street. I go to High Street quite a bit, and I walk down High Street itself. I do in the nights when I used to come back from uni in Ponty. Oh, that's Pontypridd. I never really felt safe. I used to try and bypass the main part of High Street itself and go down Orchard Street. Or go to my bus stop that way, or even just jump on a bus down to the bus station to get a bus. It's just because I never really... Yeah, it has that... it does have that element of being a very unsafe place from my point of view. But there is a big but. It's not really. I don't like it myself. That's all I'm going to say. I don't feel safe on that street at all. And I've never really felt safe on High Street train station or High Street itself. There is a police station in High Street train station. At one point, the leader of the council said yesterday that he goes to High Street. He visits his businesses in High Street. Now, there's a difference between visiting High Street, visiting businesses during an election time, than going to see them daily. You know, these people are choosing to do business in our area. They chose to come here to open their business here. The council leader now says that regeneration is underway of High Street. This is what he said, and this comes from the Wave and Swansea Sound. So here we go.
First of all, just initially a reaction to all this tabloid coverage of Swansea's High Street.
Well, look, Swansea, like all big cities, has its issues, and we've been aware and working for some time to support vulnerable people, to try and work with the police to deal with the issues of drugs and the county lines issues, which see drug dealers actually coming into Swansea on the train and operating at the top of High Street. That is something that the police and a number of other agencies have been trying to deal with for some time, but I do feel that the coverage, especially in the Daily Mail, was completely unfair. I mean, there is a huge amount of stuff.
Now, he mentions the Daily Mail as first. However, I'd like to point out that the story that he's talking about that was in the Daily Mail, it was in Wales Online, the Evening Post, a local paper, about 2 days before it ended up in the Daily Mail. The Wave also wrote about it. They're owned by the Sun. It was also in the Sun. It was in the Daily Mail. It was in the Evening Post first, and the Wave, who are owned by someone else. The Evening Post is owned by Wales Online, and Wales Online are owned by the Mirror Group. Then it went into the Daily Mail. Then it went into Wales Online again, and it's just spiraled out of control. So basically, here we go.
Happening in and around the High Street area, not just investment, but support for vulnerable people. All of the housing up there has been renovated to give people.
No. I'd like to argue that most people who lived there, after the fire in London, Grenville, they had the same cladding put on the building. They were very afraid. And the regeneration that they've done, cosmetic changes. That saying comes to mind. You really can't polish a turd. A turd is still a turd. You either have to knock down the housing blocks and rebuild the estates and communities and start again. It is now time that your regeneration doesn't... that you spend money on that part of High Street, not the part that you've already been spending money on for years.
Quality homes again. There's a lot going on in that area, and I think the Daily Mail's article was just completely absurd.
He keeps talking about the Daily Mail, and you can hear it in his voice on how absurd the article is, because it's from the Daily Mail. Well, yes, I can understand that he's the leader of Swansea Labour Council. However, most of the work in that article was done by the organisation he was giving this interview that we're listening to, The Sun, The Wave. It was also done by the Evening Post, the local paper. They just take the story and rewrite it to their own ways, but all of the facts still are the same. Obviously, the council leader lives in his own cocoon. And we'll go on and hear that now.
I'm sure you have to accept there is a problem there, and it is a gateway to our city from that railway station as well.
It is, and look, I mean, at the top of High Street, we recognise there are issues there, and specifically there are partnerships in place between the police, third sector, ourselves, to support vulnerable people, to deal with issues of drugs and to deal with issues that vulnerable people will experience in that area. But it's also about the fact that we are significantly changing the fabric of that area. As you say, it's the gateway to the city. There's over £100 million currently being invested there.
Okay, £100 million currently being invested there and changing it from the gateway to the city. But what's the point when the funding only stops at the tax office and CK supermarket? You're not spending the money up the top. The top has fallen down. The man... To me, the leader of the council is out of depth and out of touch with the city centre. They're vanity projects that he is just pumping through. They're not the... It's not what everyone wants. It's what he wants, and what he wants, he'll get. But here's more.
By coastal, by private firms, regenerating and rebuilding that area in order for it to be not just a safe and secure place for people to live in, but also a welcoming gateway to the city.
But it was meant to be a safe and secure place for people to live in now. So haven't you theoretically failed if you've got council tenants who do not feel safe or secure in their own homes and you're the leader of the council? You know, you've technically failed there if you're saying, well, we need to make... Haven't you technically failed, okay, people, if you're sitting there and you're saying, we need to make it, we're working with these people in order to make it safe and secure, to provide safe and secure housing, when you're the leader of the council, the council owns the tower blocks where these houses are, and most of the housing up onto the top of High Street, and you're still saying... You know, so you'll have tenants, obviously by your words, that do not feel safe or secure in their own homes. Shouldn't they have felt safe and secure in their own homes all of the time? Not just because you're talking to the media, or because you're trying to invest on the bottom end, or you're trying to one of your fancy redesigns of the city centre. Haven't we already looked and said that the funding for the city centre stops and ends at the tax office and at the CK supermarket store? Doesn't go on further. You know, the people on top of the High Street who live in those flats, there are probably some nice people who live there who do, you know, who go about their lives every day. Now, those people... Shouldn't they feel safe and secure in their homes right now if they're renting from your council, Mr. Stewart?
Of Swansea.
And is it worrying when you get this sort of coverage when you're bringing new developers into the area?
Well, it's not worrying, but it's frustrating because, you know, I feel for the businesses that have set up in High Street, you know, that are doing very well. And, you know, they are working day to day to change the perception of High Street, to change the feel of High Street, and it is working. It is changing. If you go through High Street now, about a third of it has already been rebuilt. Coastal will be coming forward with further plans shortly to do the part between where the Evening Post building is currently and the Grand Hotel. You know, you've got major schemes, the Mariner Street car park scheme, the Old Way Centre.
I'm glad he's just brought up Mariner Street car park, the scheme. Basically, the only reason that they're looking at Mariner Street car park, as it's called, or the High Street train station car park, Marty Shore car park that goes over, it's got two little bits, but the only reason they're looking at it is because a couple of months ago, the nice a member of the Welsh Assembly, Bethan Shree, brought it up that it's a mess. They were told by the two Labour AMs constituency AMs. They were told, the council were told by the government of Wales. Council were also criticised by other AMs, our regional AMs, about, you know, the whole car park, and even people who have come to Swansea and parked there. You know, it needed to be done out. It smells of urine. It's been the same for donkey's years. I also mentioned Alexander House, didn't I? Well, on the 17th of March, there was a fire on top of the roof. Antisocial behaviour again, because some kids, by all accounts, the story is, climbed onto the roof and set a fire. High Street used to be awash, according to another article that I read on the 31st of March of this year in Wales Online. High Street used to have hundreds of prostitutes. And these stories will be linked in on our website, so the links to them, and they'll also be on the YouTube as well. So do go and read the stories, come to your own opinions yourself. But back to Rod Stewart.
To being done. Council are in very shortly refurbishing all of the car parks around there. You know, there's a huge amount of investment going in there to support the businesses, to make the High Street a vibrant place like it used to be, and that's what we're trying to achieve here. So it is frustrating when tabloid journalists who don't know the area just put a really negative headline out and damage the businesses in the area. That's the real pain here, is that they're inflicting pain and difficulties on businesses that are struggling in that area.
Are you hopeful that in the future bringing students into that area will change the whole demographic as well?
Well, again, you know, you look at places like Uplands, you know, whilst it does have its issues with HMOs and stuff, you look at Uplands as a community, as a little town, it is thriving, and a lot of that is due to the fact that you have...
He's missing the picture. He's now looking at Uplands as a little community or town. For those of you who don't know Swansea, Uplands is on the gateway of Swansea University. So he's looking at this place. It's about 20 minutes away from High Street train station and the city centre. Walking distance. Uplands has always been... I was born at Morriston Hospital, but I lived in Uplands for about the first 11 years of my life. My doctor's surgery is in the Uplands. My dentist used to be in the Uplands. My cousin, my mum, work in the Uplands. Where else am I? There's something else of mine in the Uplands. Oh, my bank used to be in the Uplands. It's moved now. It's no longer in the Uplands. But anyway, so yes, the Uplands is meant to be a little town, or like a little town. The only problem is High Street is a part of the city centre. So it's a part of our little... Here in Wales we call it town, or in Swansea we still call it as town. So it's part of a town of its own. So shouldn't it already be a thriving area of the city centre? I don't know, maybe.
A student population there that bring that vibrancy, and having over 1,200 students based at the top of High Street will change the dynamic, will attract more retail, will attract more food and beverage outlets, will change that whole dynamic. And again, it's not just that, because you've got to remember there are...
Actually, no, it won't when the students are in High Street. Uplands, it only attracted the businesses because the students were there, and because it was a 20-minute walk from the city centre to where these businesses and cafes and stuff are. But High Street is a 5-minute walk to McDonald's, a 7-minute walk to all the restaurants and pubs. There's buses that go down into town and can take them along to the Uplands, to where the other students are. And like I said, it's only a 20-minute to 40, I would say to High Street itself, it's about a half hour to 40-minute walk from the Uplands. Now, a bus can do it in about 10-15 minutes. And, if you're a student and you're living on High Street, the vast majority of students in Swansea either go to Singleton campus, Swansea University, or to the Swansea Bay campus of Swansea University, or to UWTSD. as well, to the Nether building, to, there are another university, but there is one campus on High Street, but it's a building, and UWTSD are around that area, but not many of their students choose to live in halls of residence, private ones anyway, or didn't used to, on High Street. You don't think, right, when you're a student and you're looking at your halls of residence, the one thing that you do is look at the, where you're going to live. Especially if you're an 18-year-old student, right? You don't think that your parents, for the first time you're moving out of your home, the first time you're going to be without them. And you're 17 when you're making these decisions. So you don't think that, your parents are going to research where you're going to live. Hello? Do you really think they're going to attract students on the top of High Street? And actually, the building that he's talking about, one half of the building, because it's two buildings split into what? It's one building split into two, I should say. However, one building, Aldway House, Alexander House, is on one side, and Aldway House is on the other side. Now, Aldway House is actually on Orchard Street and not on High Street, Mr. Stewart.
Other businesses based at the top of High Street in the other part of Aldway Centre. There are major employers based there. And again, the council is doing a significant amount of works around that area to improve the public realm as well. So, we really are now into the phase of seeing physical works there, which will completely change the look and feel and the vibrancy of the important High Street area of the city.
And have you been getting out and about?
Okay, if High Street was so important to the city, why hasn't investment ever been spent on the top of High Street in the last 30 to 40 years? Why is it only happening now? This problem has been going on for generations, like I said.
About meeting business people there and talking to them and seeing how they feel, what they want in the future?
Yeah, I go into the city centre very regularly, and I do speak to people. I speak to some of the people who used to be part of the Federation of Small Business there. I speak to owners of shops.
So he goes into the city centre quite regularly, considering his office is at County Hall. Or technically in the city centre. As leader of the council, he has an office that's technically, even if it's not at County Hall and it's at the Guild Hall, it's still in the city centre. You still need to go through the city centre to get there. Now, his constituency is Morriston. Morriston being, out of the city, about half hour out of the city, out of the city centre. Now, to get from County Hall or the Guild Hall, he would need to go into the city centre. He would need, if you're going by public transport, the bus goes through the city centre. Mr. Leader of the Council, maybe you should use public transport. And maybe you should take the bus to work, considering your office is in the middle of the city centre and we are meant to be encouraging more people to use public transport at the moment. So, maybe you should take the bus to the city centres, get off at High Street and walk down to the office. You'll see what everyone else in Swansea sees, with your eyes open. Maybe he says he's talking to businesses. Obviously, he's not talking to businesses from what I've seen. Businesses are closing. But more.
Deal with the issues of drugs and the county line.
Sorry, people.
For years, don't have the same issues that are saying we don't have issues here as well.
Sure.
I do speak to people. I speak to some of the people who used to be part of the Federation of Small Business there. I speak to owners of shops. I engage on social media as well regularly with people. And yes, I know this is not about...
Now, according to the leader of the council... So, according to the leader of the council... Oh, this one is so good. Yes, so I know this is the third time, but according to the leader of the council, he engages on social media. No, he only takes the pomp and fury and the good stuff. He doesn't take the criticism or the bad stuff. So how is that engaging well on social media? I really don't understand that. But anyway, here we go again.
Saying we don't have issues at the very top of High Street. We don't have the same issues that affect Bristol, Cardiff, Birmingham, London and other major cities. We do have those issues, and we're trying our best to support vulnerable people and work with our partners to deal with that. But I have to also try and make sure that I restore confidence in the city, that we bring in the investment, that we do actually get people coming to the city and spending money that we haven't had for years, because that's what people want to see. They want to see a lovely city centre where they can go and enjoy a day out in a safe and enjoyable environment.
I'm sorry, but they wanted this all along. What's been going on, Councillor? What has been going on? People have wanted a safe place where they can spend their money, where they can come, but it's failed council policy over the years that you have been a part of. Even when your party was in opposition, you have all been a part of it. The High Street has been left to rack and ruin for generations. You know, and then when you decided, as now we're going to go back, and as I said in the beginning, they decided to move the job centre, so the government and the civil service decided that they were going to move the job centre where these people would normally come off High Street, come down to St David's, be in the city centre, right? So, you know, if we could look at the trouble, then you probably didn't have as much trouble in the area of, you know, congregated in one street. It actually would have gone across many different streets. So it wouldn't make all of the statistics look like, you know, High Street is a war zone. Well, actually, it's not. You can get some really nice stuff in High Street. My auntie, one of them as well, who I forgot to mention about owning a business on High Street, used to own a cafe on High Street during the last works. It was because of the Liberal Democrats Council doing all of the work on High Street that her cafe had to go out of business. Because all of the businesses around her went out of business, her customers. So, once again, if you do come to Swansea, don't hold what's been in the media as being, you know, right. The problems there are problems that have been of our own council's making, in my opinion, because of the way that they decide to spend their resources on city centre planning, but failing to take into account that when you've got a place named High Street, and the street is very long, and you know, you're putting designations in as the top of High Street, Upper High Street, and, you know, the money just stops by the train station and the tax office and CKs, and any infrastructure projects and stuff like that stops there too. Basically, it's just quite ridiculous. Go and look. We will put some pictures of High Street up on our website. That's realterrio.co.uk. And once again, people, if you do want to get involved and you do want to comment, feel free to comment below. Feel free to come onto our website, join our online community and, you know, comment. Or even onto our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/realterrio, or our Twitter, and you can send us a tweet and it's at realterrio, or you can tweet me at rtterryd. So that's at rtterryd. And we will see you next week, or 2 weeks' time, for my next Around the World podcast about family history and what I've learnt about mine. So it's quite interesting, actually. So have a good evening. Remember, tune in, listen to the rest of the podcast, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Podcasts brought to you by Real Terrio Radio. Around the world today here on Real Terrio Radio.